Honey, we need to have a talk. How many men have heard those words, I wonder? How many marriages and dreams have been smashed? Sure, Debbie, whatever you want, I replied absently to my wife of 14 years, who had just walked into our house. And who is this young man with you? Well, Charlie, she started, a certain hesitancy in her voice. This is Michael, and it's him I want to talk to you about. I looked up at the pair of them from where I was sitting, observing my pretty, 36-year-old wife and the rather good-looking man with her who couldn't have been more than 23 or so. Didn't look or sound so good, did it? Debbie had a very serious look on her face, but this Michael character was smiling. Or would you call that a smirk? It didn't really matter too much, but for sure he was looking pretty pleased with himself. By the sounds of it, maybe he had reason to. What about Michael, then? I questioned Debbie. Debbie swallowed and coughed to cover her nervousness. Charlie, you must be aware that sex between us hasn't been too good of late? I don't know how you could say such a thing, Debbie, I pleaded. Come on now, Charlie, honey, she plunged on. You know as well as I do that our sexual relations have not been very exciting lately. Not very exciting? I queried. What do you mean by not very exciting? What I mean, honey, is that maybe you haven't been giving me everything that I need. How would you know that, Debbie? I demanded. Since you haven't deigned to have sex with me for the last 6 weeks, I don't see how you can claim they haven't been very good. My wife at least had the decency to look a little uncomfortable and looked up at Michael for moral support. Look, Charlie, broke in Michael. What Debbie's trying to say is, I don't know you, young man, I interrupted him. And you don't know me. If you wish to talk to me, then don't call me Charlie. It's Mr. Martin to you. Michael stood there fuming, his face turning an interesting shade of red. He knew I'd got the better of him on that one, so that was 1-0 to me. However, I had a fair idea of what was coming, and the score wasn't going to stay that way for long. Leave this to me, Michael, spoke up my wife before her boyfriend could do something they might regret. Look, Charlie, it isn't that I don't still love you or anything. I think the world of you and couldn't imagine life without you. So you're not telling me that you've fallen in love with someone else then, Debbie? No, of course not, she confirmed. Well, at least not exactly. She looked pleadingly at me, hoping I'd understand, so I gestured for her to go on. I don't want to change anything between us, honey. I'm still as much in love with you as when we got married. It's just that spiritually, I feel I have expanded a little more than you have, Charlie, and I just need a bit of space to sort of find myself. She stopped again, smiling at me, hoping that I'd go along with her. By find yourself, Debbie? I ventured, nodding my head. I guess you mean being free to fuck Mickey boy here. Michael bristled at my calling him Mickey but held himself in check, realizing that I was goading him. Don't be crude, honey, Debbie scolded me. It's not becoming for a man like you. I thought you'd be more understanding of my needs. So what would you call it then, Debbie? Well, more of a meaningful relationship, she explained. An essential expansion of my being. Like a sort of fucking him relationship and cheating on me type of expansion, you mean? Debbie pulled a face and sighed deeply, looking at me as if I was a difficult child having a tantrum. Charlie, you're not making this very easy for me, you know? Sorry, honey, I mumbled. I wouldn't want to make things difficult for you while you're finding yourself. That's okay, Charlie, she graciously accepted my apology. But you haven't actually said what you want yet, Debbie, I pointed out, which brought her up a bit short. I think you know what I want, Charlie. Spell it out, Debbie, I insisted. There was a little whispering between the two of them, making it more than obvious that the conversation wasn't going at all as they had expected. Eventually, Mickey boy nudged Debbie to continue, clearly not prepared to address me as Mr. Martin. Well, what we thought, Charlie, she started at long last, is that you and I carry on happily as before, but I am free to have dates with Michael 2 or 3 times a week. You'd hardly notice the difference, honey, I promise. And you think that would work out for the best for the two of us? Do you, Debbie? Well, yes, I do, honey, she went on. Michael and I have worked it all out, and I might not be here some evenings, but I'd always be back to have breakfast with you. Now that was interesting. Since it was always me that made breakfast anyway, she wasn't exactly putting herself out, was she? And then you'd be able to find yourself then, Debbie? Well, yes, I would, my wife agreed. With Michael's help. Oh, and of course yours as well, Charlie. Then I'm sure I could expand my horizons as I've always wanted to. What a load of shit. Great, I responded, nodding my head to indicate that I thought I'd fully understood what the proposal was. So we carry on as we have for the last 6 weeks with me getting no sex from you, while pricky Mickey boy here gets to fuck you several times a week. Debbie looked somewhat deflated while her lover boy clenched and unclenched his fist in anger. Please, Charlie, stop being difficult, Debbie pleaded, holding her arms out and stepping forward towards me. Of course it won't be like that, honey. I'm sorry I've neglected you lately, but I promise I'll make it up to you. I held my hand out to halt her, looked over at the other man and asked, Is that okay with you then, Mickey? Is that okay if your girlfriend gives me the occasional mercy fuck then? He grinned stupidly back at me, sure that they had me where they wanted me. Whatever, dude. Screw Debbie all you want as far as I'm concerned. But she'll never enjoy it as much as she does with me. Debbie at least started to protest, telling him to shut up, but he had his pecker up by then and carried on. With your little dick, she probably won't feel you inside her after she's been with a real man like me. Is that what you think as well, Debbie? I inquired. That Mickey's cock is so much bigger than mine and that he knows how to use it better than me? No, Charlie. I swear I've never said that to him. He's making it up, the stupid prat. He's no better than you in bed. A bit rougher, maybe. Just different, that's all. I gave them a few moments before I hit them with my next comment. That's more or less exactly what Linda said, as it happens. My statement brought the pair of them up short. Debbie stood there with her mouth wide open in surprise, while Mickey boy lurched forward, raising his fist at me. Leave Linda out of this, you bastard. He screamed at me angrily. Sorry, Mickey boy, but your wife Linda is already involved. I relished telling him that. As he approached me threateningly, his fist ready, Debbie made a grab for him, pulling him back. Don't, Michael, she implored him. I'll kill the bastard, he retorted loudly. An old sod like him. Michael, she said as she held on to him. Believe me, you stand no chance. If you hit him, you'll regret it. She was right, of course. I may have been 15 years or so older than him, and he may work out in some gym. But I'd worked up to running my own construction firm the hard way, and over the years had learned how to look after myself against some of the hardest men in the trade. He stepped back, thinking twice about it. Pity. Never mind. Maybe there'd be another opportunity. Why are you getting Michael's wife into this affair? My loving wife, Debbie asked me at last. There's no need to involve her. Not me, I told her. It was her that contacted me a month ago and told me what was going on between you two. If Debbie looked surprised, then Mickey boy looked stunned. He'd had no idea whatsoever. No idea at all. God, this was starting to feel good. 2-0. There was a standoff. We all stared at one another, each of us waiting for someone else to say something. Again, it was Debbie that broke first. Are you confessing to me, Charlie, that you've actually had sex with Linda? If you mean have I been making love to her, I delighted in telling her. Then the answer is yes. It started as a revenge fuck for the two of us about 4 weeks ago. But I'm pleased to tell you that it's become a lot more than that. You're lying, you bastard, Mickey boy jumped in with. My wife wouldn't go to bed with anyone else but me, and especially an old bugger like you. Raising my eyebrows, I glanced over at Debbie, who looked a bit pissed. We were both about the same age, Debbie and I, so what did his comments say about her? Poor old cow. You want proof, Mickey? I teased him. You want me to describe her special rose tattoo and exactly where it is? Or would you prefer me to imitate how she cries out, oh yes, oh yes, oh yes when she orgasms? If looks could kill, then I'd be long time dead. At that moment, he knew for sure that I'd not only seen his beautiful, sexy 21-year-old wife naked, but that I'd also given her a good fucking. I've never known a girl get so worked up just by tweaking her nipples, I added, rubbing it in. And blimey, does she enjoy sucking my cock? Liar, he threw at me. Linda doesn't do that. Not for you, sunshine. I delighted in taunting him. But I've persuaded her how much fun it can be. She loves it. You should have spent more time experimenting with her instead of doing my wife. I'm going, he shouted angrily, shoving Debbie's hand off him. I'm going to show that bloody wife of mine what's what. Hang on, Mickey, I called to him, taking a key from my pocket. Unless you've got a key like this, then you won't be able to get into the house. I've got my own key, you bloody idiot, he screamed bad-temperedly. Not like this one you haven't, I informed him. We've had the locks to your house changed. Mickey visibly wilted. I enjoyed that, right? I'll be off then, I joyfully informed the pair of them, standing up for the first time. If you need me, then you know where I'll be. What about your things, Charlie? Debbie cried out, the first tears beginning to pour down her cheeks. You can't just walk out on me, honey. Oh, but I can, my dear, I informed her. And everything I want from this house is either already at Linda's house or packed up in my car. Maybe that'll leave you a bit of extra space to expand into, honey. Debbie looked hurriedly around the room we were in and, for the first time, noticed a number of my personal things missing. She burst into tears and tried to rush into my arms, but I held her back and calmly told her that she could keep the house and her car, and that my solicitor would be in touch with her about anything else. But how will I live, Charlie? She sobbed pitifully. You've got your part-time job, Debbie, I reminded her. And maybe Mickey here will support you, though it may not be so easy since Linda's dad will be sacking him tomorrow morning. Walking to the front door, I looked back at the pair of them, noting the difference in their air of dejection compared to how full of confidence they had been just half an hour previously. Bye, Mickey, I called out to him as I left the house. Nice to have met you. Bye, Debbie, thanks for everything and nice to have known you. 3-0. Game over. I didn't look back as I closed the door behind me, but as I walked down the path to my car, I could hear the pair of them shouting and screaming at one another. I knew that it would cost me $100,000 or so to get rid of Debbie, but it wasn't the first time she'd been unfaithful to me and my feelings for her were dead. Besides, trading in a 36-year-old, even one still in quite good condition, plus $100,000 for a low-mileage 21-year-old model in pristine, beautiful condition seemed a good deal to me. The fact that she was an animal in bed seemed to have fallen head over heels in love with me, and her dad being a multimillionaire seemed to help quite a bit as well. What a laugh! What a laugh!